My name is John, a 45-year-old software engineer living in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Chicago. My wife Emily and I have been married for 20 years. We have two wonderful children, our 17-year-old son Michael, and our 15-year-old daughter Lily. On the surface, we are the picture of a perfect family, living in a charming two-story house with a neatly manicured lawn, the kind that every passerby admires. Our life has always seemed idyllic to those who look in from the outside. Emily is a beautiful woman with striking green eyes and a radiant smile that can light up any room. She has been a stay-at-home mom since Lily was born, dedicating her time to raising our children and managing our household. She's known for her kindness and generosity, always willing to lend a hand to friends and neighbors. Her involvement in the community, from the PTA to various charity events, has made her a beloved figure in our small town. Michael is an athlete, the star quarterback of his high school football team, with dreams of playing college football. He's got his mother's charisma and my analytical mind. Lily, on the other hand, is an artist. She spends hours in her room sketching and painting, her creativity boundless. She's more introverted than her brother, preferring the company of her sketchbooks to the bustling social life of high school. Our home, with its white picket fence and flower-filled garden, is a sanctuary. It's where we've built our lives, celebrated birthdays, holidays, and countless milestones. The walls are adorned with family photos, capturing moments of joy and love that define us. It's a place where I've always felt safe, where I believed my family was secure and our bond unbreakable. But life has a way of revealing its hidden cracks, and sometimes the facade of perfection hides the deepest wounds. This is the story of how my seemingly perfect world began to crumble, one lie at a time. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a small pebble causing a ripple in a still pond. Emily's behavior began to change. At first, I chalked it up to the natural ebb and flow of marriage, the result of 20 years together. But the little things added up, and the nagging doubt in the back of my mind grew louder. Emily had always been attentive and caring, but she started becoming distant. She would lose herself in her phone for hours, her fingers dancing across the screen in hurried taps. When I asked her who she was texting, she would smile faintly and say it was just the ladies from the PTA or some other innocuous group. Her explanations seemed plausible, yet something felt off. Her demeanor shifted as well. Emily, who used to light up at the sight of me, now seemed perpetually distracted. Conversations that once flowed easily between us became strained. She would snap at me for the smallest things or retreat into silence when I tried to engage her in discussion about our day. The warmth that had defined our relationship felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Then there were the late nights. Emily began volunteering for more evening activities, something she had never done before. She claimed these were charity events or planning meetings for community projects. While I admired her dedication to our town, the frequency and duration of these events were unusual. She would leave the house dressed impeccably, her makeup done with a level of care that I hadn't seen in years. One night, after another meeting, she came home well past midnight. I was still awake, pretending to be asleep when she slipped into bed. Her phone buzzed with a message, and she quickly silenced it. Curiosity got the better of me. As she slept, I gently took her phone from the nightstand. It was locked with a new password, one I didn't know. That was when the first pangs of true suspicion took hold. Emily and I had never kept secrets from each other, and now there was this barrier between us. I started to pay more attention to her actions, noting the inconsistencies. She would come home with the scent of a man's cologne lingering on her clothes, a scent that wasn't mine. There were unexplained expenses on our credit card statements, dinners at expensive restaurants, purchases from high-end boutiques that she never mentioned. Our children noticed the change too. Michael would ask why Mom was always out, or why she seemed so distant when she was home. Lily, in her quiet way, expressed her concern through her art. I found a sketch she had drawn of our family, but Emily was depicted in the background, fading into shadows while the rest of us stood in the light. It was a heartbreaking realization that whatever was happening with Emily was affecting all of us. The turning point came when Emily started receiving phone calls at odd hours. She would step out of the room to take them, her voice hushed and secretive. One evening, as she walked out onto the porch to answer yet another call, I decided to follow her. I kept a distance, staying hidden behind the curtains. Her voice was muffled, but I caught enough to understand the gravity of the situation. "Yes, I miss you too." I can't wait to see you again. I'll find a way to make it work. My heart pounded in my chest, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. This was no ordinary conversation. The intimacy in her voice, the longing, it was unmistakable. Emily was involved with someone else. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me, swallowing me into a pit of despair. The woman I had loved for 2 decades, the mother of my children, was lying to me. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, washing away the trust and stability I had once taken for granted. But I needed proof. I needed to know for sure before confronting her, before potentially destroying our family. The days that followed were torturous. I continued to watch, to listen, gathering the pieces of a puzzle I wished didn't exist. Each new detail confirmed my worst fears, and with every passing day, the love I had for Emily was tainted by the growing sense of betrayal. As much as it pained me, I knew I had to confront her eventually, but I had to be sure. Had to have irrefutable evidence of her infidelity. Only then could I face her, demand the truth, and decide what to do with the shattered remnants of our life together. The days turned into weeks, and my suspicions grew into an unbearable weight. I needed to know the truth. One evening, when Emily announced she had another meeting, I decided to follow her. I waited until she left, then quickly grabbed my car keys and trailed behind her, keeping a safe distance. She drove to a part of town we rarely visited, a neighborhood filled with trendy bars and upscale restaurants. My heart pounded as she pulled into the parking lot of a stylish boutique hotel. I parked a few spots away and watched as she exited the car, looking around nervously before heading inside. I waited for a few minutes, then followed her inside, my pulse racing. The lobby was dimly lit, exuding an air of discretion. I approached the front desk, trying to act casual. "Excuse me," I said to the receptionist. "I'm supposed to meet my wife here, but I forgot which room she's in. Can you help me out?" The receptionist, a young woman with a kind smile, nodded. "Of course, sir. What's her name?" "Emily Carter." She typed the name into her computer and frowned. "I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name checked in." My heart sank. I thanked her and stepped back, trying to figure out my next move. As I stood there, a couple walked by and I heard a familiar laugh, Emily's laugh. I turned and saw her heading towards the elevator with a man I didn't recognize. They were holding hands, her face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in years. I felt a surge of anger and heartbreak. It was one thing to suspect, but seeing it with my own eyes was a whole new level of pain. I followed them to the elevator, staying out of sight. When the doors closed, I quickly noted the floor number. After they disappeared from view, I waited a few moments before taking the next elevator up. When I reached the floor, I saw them entering a room at the end of the hall. I stood there, my fists clenched, trying to gather the courage to confront them. But as I approached the door, I heard their laughter again, followed by the unmistakable sounds of intimacy. It was too much to bear. I turned and walked away, the pain searing through me. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and anger. I had my proof now, but it was a hollow victory. I needed more concrete evidence to confront her without any chance of denial. I decided to hire a private investigator, someone who could gather the irrefutable proof I needed. The investigator, a seasoned professional named Sam, was sympathetic and efficient. Within days, he provided me with photos, videos, and text messages between Emily and her lover. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. There were pictures of them kissing, holding hands, and even entering hotels together. The messages were explicit, filled with promises of love and plans for a future together. One particularly painful video showed them at a restaurant, celebrating their anniversary. The sight of Emily, so happy and in love with another man, was like a dagger to my heart. It was clear that this was not a fleeting affair, but a deep, emotional connection that had been growing for months, if not years. Armed with this evidence, I felt a mixture of devastation and resolve. I had the proof I needed, but the reality of what I was about to do weighed heavily on me. Confronting Emily would mean tearing apart our family, hurting our children, and shattering the life we had built together. But I knew there was no other choice. The betrayal was too deep, the trust too broken. The day I decided to confront her, I waited until the kids were at school. I sat at the kitchen table, the evidence laid out before me, waiting for her to return from her morning errands. When she walked through the door, she greeted me with a smile that quickly faded when she saw my expression. "John, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Sit down, Emily," I said, my voice cold and steady. "We need to talk." She hesitated, then sat across from me, her eyes darting to the papers and photos on the table. I watched as her face went pale, her hands trembling slightly. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "This," I said, pointing to the evidence, "is proof of your affair. I know everything, Emily. The lies, the deceit, the betrayal. I've seen the messages, the photos, the videos. I followed you to the hotel. I know about him." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she shook her head as if trying to deny it. "John, I can explain." "Explain?" I interrupted, my anger boiling over. "Explain how you could betray me, our children, our family? Explain how you could lie to my face for months, if not years? Explain how you could look me in the eye every day and pretend everything was fine?" She started to sob, her tears falling onto the table. "I'm so sorry, John. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as a mistake, a moment of weakness. But then, I don't know. I was lonely, and he made me feel alive again. I never wanted to hurt you." "Never wanted to hurt me?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You've destroyed everything, Emily. Our marriage, our family, our trust. How could you do this to us?" "I was unhappy," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I felt neglected, unloved. You were always busy with work, with the kids. I felt like I was invisible." I stared at her, a mix of anger and heartbreak coursing through me. "So this is my fault? You're blaming me for your infidelity?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain how I felt. I know what I did was wrong. I know I've hurt you deeply. But please, John, I still love you. I want to fix this, to make things right." I shook my head, unable to believe her words. "How can we fix this, Emily? How can we go back to the way things were when you've shattered everything?" She reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched mine. "Please, John, give me a chance. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family." I pulled my hand away, the touch of her skin repulsive to me now. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Emily. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way. Right now I need time to think, to process everything." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. Take all the time you need, but please, don't give up on us." I stood up, the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. "I'm going for a walk. I need some air." As I walked out the door, I heard her sobs behind me, but I didn't look back. I needed to clear my head, to figure out what to do next. The road ahead was uncertain, and I knew that whatever decision I made would change our lives forever. The walk didn't help. My mind was a storm of anger, betrayal, and confusion. I found myself wandering aimlessly through the neighborhood, replaying the confrontation with Emily over and over again in my mind. The more I thought about it, the more the gravity of her betrayal sank in. This wasn't something that could be fixed with a few counseling sessions. The damage ran too deep. When I finally returned home, it was late afternoon. The house was eerily quiet, and I found Emily sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She looked up as I entered, a mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. "John, can we talk?" she asked softly. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. "We need to be honest, Emily, completely honest. No more lies, no more half-truths. I need to know everything." She took a deep breath, nodding. "You're right. You deserve the truth." I leaned forward, my gaze piercing. "Who is he?" "His name is Mark," she said quietly. "We met at one of the charity events I volunteered for. He was charming, attentive. He made me feel special, like I mattered." "And how long has this been going on?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. "About a year," she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes again. "It started with innocent flirting, but it quickly escalated. I'm so sorry, John. I never wanted to hurt you." I clenched my fists, trying to control my rage. "A year, Emily? A whole year of lying and sneaking around behind my back? How could you?" She sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I don't know. I was lonely and unhappy. You were always so busy, and I felt like you didn't see me anymore. That's no excuse, I snapped. We could have talked, gone to counseling, done something. Instead, you chose to betray me and our children. She looked up, her eyes pleading. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I love you, John. I want to fix this. Please, let's try to work things out. I shook my head, the pain too fresh, too raw. I don't know if that's possible. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and you've shattered it. Please, she whispered, reaching out to touch my hand. Give me a chance. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I pulled my hand away, the touch of her skin like a burn. I need time, Emily. Time to think. Time to process all of this. She nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. I'll do anything to prove to you that I'm committed to making this work. The next few days were a blur of tense silences and stilted conversations. We tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Michael and Lily's sake, but the strain was evident. They sensed something was wrong, and it broke my heart to see the confusion and worry in their eyes. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Michael finally voiced what we all knew but hadn't said aloud. What's going on with you and Mom, Dad? You've been acting weird for days. I glanced at Emily, who looked down, unable to meet his gaze. We're going through some difficult times, I said carefully. But it's not your fault. Your mother and I love you very much, and we're doing our best to work things out. Lily, always perceptive, looked between us with wide eyes. Are you getting a divorce? Emily's breath hitched, and I saw the pain in her eyes. We don't know yet, sweetheart. We're trying to figure things out. Michael frowned, his jaw clenched. Just don't give up on us, okay? We need you both. Those words hit me hard, and I saw Emily wipe away a tear. We won't, Michael. We promise to do what's best for you and Lily. After dinner, Emily and I retreated to the living room, the weight of our children's words hanging heavy between us. They're scared, she said softly, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt them. Yet here we are, I replied bitterly, because of your choices. She flinched, but didn't argue. I know. I've made a mess of everything. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll end things with Mark. I'll cut off all contact. I'll go to counseling, therapy, whatever you want. I looked at her, seeing the desperation in her eyes. Ending things with Mark is a start, but it doesn't fix the damage that's been done. It doesn't erase the lies, the betrayal. I know, she whispered. But I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the wife you deserve, the mother our children need. I sighed, rubbing my temples. We'll go to counseling, but I'm not making any promises, Emily. This is going to take a lot of time and effort, and I don't know if we can ever get back to where we were. She nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Thank you, John. I'll do whatever it takes. We started counseling the following week, both individual and couples therapy. The sessions were painful, forcing us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. Emily was open and honest about her feelings of loneliness and neglect, and I had to face the fact that I had been distant, wrapped up in work and my own concerns. But even as we worked through our issues, the shadow of her betrayal loomed over us. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended. Every time she left the house, every time her phone buzzed, I felt a knot of anxiety in my chest. The doubt, the suspicion, it was all-consuming. One evening, after a particularly intense counseling session, Emily broke down. I'm so sorry, John, she sobbed. I hate what I've done to us. I hate myself for hurting you. I held her, my own emotions a tangled mess. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Emily, but I'm trying. For the sake of our children, I'm trying. As the months passed, we continued our therapy, slowly rebuilding the fragments of our life together. It was a long and arduous journey, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt. But amidst the pain and struggle, there were glimpses of hope. A shared laugh, a tender touch, a moment of genuine connection. Emily ended things with Mark, cutting off all contact. She immersed herself in therapy, working through her own issues and demons. I tried to be more present, more attentive. showing her the love and affection she had been missing. But the road to recovery was long, and I knew that the scars of her betrayal would never fully heal. As we stood together, facing the uncertain future, I realized that the path ahead would not be easy. But for the sake of our children, for the sake of the love we once shared, we were willing to try. To fight for our family, to rebuild what had been broken, and to find a way back to each other, one step at a time. Despite our attempts at reconciliation, the gnawing pain of Emily's betrayal was always present, like a festering wound that refused to heal. Every counseling session, every honest conversation, felt like we were merely patching up a sinking ship. Deep down, a part of me craved something more than just resolution. I wanted retribution. One evening, as Emily was out at yet another community event, I found myself scrolling through her social media accounts. It was something I had avoided doing since discovering her affair, but curiosity got the better of me. Her interactions seemed innocent enough, but a particular post from her best friend Karen caught my eye. It was a group photo from a recent charity gala, and there, standing next to Emily with his arm casually draped over her shoulder, was Mark. My blood boiled. The audacity of him, still lurking around, flaunting his presence in our lives. I couldn't let this go unpunished. I decided then and there that I would make him pay for the pain he had caused. The next day, I called in a favor from an old friend, Max, who worked in cybersecurity. Max was a bit of a genius when it came to digging up dirt on people. I explained my situation, and although he hesitated at first, he eventually agreed to help. Over the next few days, Max worked his magic, and the information he uncovered was both enlightening and infuriating. Mark was not just some innocent fling. He was a serial adulterer, using his charm and influence to seduce women, many of whom were married. He had a history of exploiting these women for financial gain, manipulating them into giving him money, gifts, and even business opportunities. With this new knowledge, I crafted a plan. I couldn't just expose him. I needed to destroy him, to ensure he never hurt another family the way he had hurt mine. First, I gathered all the evidence Max had found and compiled it into a detailed dossier. Then, I contacted a few of Mark's past victims, women who had been left devastated by his deceit. Most were reluctant to speak at first, but when I shared my story and showed them the evidence, they were more than willing to help. We formed a small alliance, determined to bring Mark down. One of the women, Rachel, had been particularly vocal about her desire for revenge. She was a successful lawyer who had fallen prey to Mark's charms and lost a significant amount of money and reputation because of him. She became my confidant and co-conspirator in this endeavor. Our plan was multifaceted. Rachel would file a lawsuit against Mark, citing emotional distress and financial exploitation. Meanwhile, I would anonymously leak the dossier to the media, ensuring that Mark's reputation would be irreparably damaged. We timed it perfectly. Just as the lawsuit was filed, the media would receive the explosive details of Mark's sordid past. The day the plan went into action, I felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. Rachel's lawsuit made headlines, and the dossier spread like wildfire across social media and news outlets. Mark's face was plastered everywhere, accompanied by stories of his deceit and manipulation. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Mark's business partners severed ties, his social circles shunned him, and his financial accounts were frozen pending investigation. He became a pariah, his life unraveling just as mine had when I discovered Emily's betrayal. Emily was in shock when she saw the news. She came to me, tears streaming down her face. "Did you do this, John?" she asked, her voice trembling. I looked at her, my expression hard. "Yes, I did. He needed to pay for what he did to us, to all those women. He deserved it." She nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and understanding. "I can't say I'm sorry to see him get what he deserves. But where does this leave us, John? Can we ever move past this?" I sighed, the weight of the past months pressing down on me. "I don't know, Emily. I really don't. But I needed to do this. For us. For our children. For myself." In the weeks that followed, our lives slowly began to settle into a new kind of normal. The constant tension eased, and Emily seemed genuinely remorseful, more committed than ever to repairing our relationship. But despite her efforts, the scars of her betrayal remained. a permanent reminder of the trust that had been shattered. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset, Emily took my hand in hers. "I know I've hurt you deeply, John, and I don't expect you to forgive me easily. But I want you to know that I'm here, that I love you, and that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "I appreciate that, Emily, and I'm trying, but it's going to take time, a lot of time." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "I understand, and I'll be here, waiting as long as it takes." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over our yard, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road to healing was long and uncertain, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to each other, one step at a time. Months passed, and while the immediate storm of Mark's downfall had settled, the aftermath continued to affect our lives. Emily and I were working through the motions of trying to rebuild our marriage, attending counseling sessions, and spending time together as a family. But the underlying tension remained, a constant reminder of the betrayal and the pain that still lingered. One evening, after another exhausting counseling session, Emily and I sat in the living room, the silence between us heavy. The kids were out with friends, giving us a rare moment alone. "John," Emily began, her voice hesitant, "there's something I need to talk to you about." I looked at her, a sense of dread creeping into my heart. "What is it, Emily?" She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with tears. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and as much as I want to fix things between us, I realize that I've caused you so much pain. I don't know if we can ever truly move past this." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What are you saying?" She wiped away a tear, her hands trembling. Maybe it's time for us to go our separate ways. I love you, John, and I always will. But I can see how much this has hurt you, and I don't want to keep dragging you through this pain." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Part of me had anticipated this moment, yet hearing it out loud was a shock. "So you're giving up?" She shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, it's not that. I think you deserve a chance to heal, to find happiness again. And I don't know if you can do that with me here, constantly reminding you of what I did." We sat in silence for a moment, the enormity of the decision hanging between us. I thought about the years we had spent together, the good times and the bad, the dreams we had shared, and the family we had built. "Emily," I said finally, my voice soft, "I don't know what the future holds for us, but if you truly believe this is the best way forward, then maybe you're right. Maybe we do need to find our own paths to healing." Tears streamed down her face, and she reached out to take my hand. "I'm so sorry, John. I wish things could have been different." I squeezed her hand, a mixture of sadness and acceptance washing over me. "Me too, Emily. Me too." We spent the next few days discussing the logistics of our separation. It was a painful process, dividing up our lives, figuring out how to tell the kids, and making plans for the future. We agreed to keep things as amicable as possible, for the sake of Michael and Lily, who had already been through so much. The hardest part was telling the kids. We sat them down one evening, explaining our decision in the gentlest way possible. Michael looked stunned, his eyes filling with tears. Lily sat quietly, her expression a mix of confusion and hurt. "Why?" Michael asked, his voice choked. "Why can't you guys just work it out?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Sometimes, no matter how much we try, things just don't work out the way we want them to. But this doesn't mean we don't love you both. We'll always be here for you, no matter what." Lily looked at Emily, her voice barely a whisper. "Is it because of what happened with Mark?" Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart, that's part of it. But your dad and I both believe this is the best way for all of us to move forward." The kids hugged us tightly, their tears mingling with ours. It was a heart-wrenching moment, knowing that we were causing them pain, but also understanding that this was the only way to truly begin the healing process. Emily moved out a week later, finding a small apartment nearby so that she could still be close to the kids. We worked out a co-parenting schedule, trying to maintain as much stability as possible for Michael and Lily. Our last conversation as a couple took place in our empty living room, the space that had once been filled with laughter and love now echoing with the finality of our decision. "John," Emily said, her voice trembling, "I hope you find happiness. I hope you can heal." I nodded, the ache in my heart both familiar and distant. "I hope you do too, Emily." We hugged one last time, a bittersweet embrace filled with regret and acceptance. As she walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of relief. The chapter of our life together was closing, but it was also the beginning of a new journey for both of us. In the months that followed, we focused on our children, ensuring that they felt loved and supported. It wasn't easy, but over time, the wounds began to heal, and we found a new rhythm, a new way of being a family, even if it was different from what we had imagined. Emily and I remained civil, even friendly at times, as we navigated our new lives apart. There were moments of sadness, of longing for what could have been, but there were also moments of hope, of looking forward to the future with a sense of possibility. Life after betrayal was a series of steps, some forward, some back, but each one a testament to resilience, to the enduring strength of the human spirit. And as I looked towards the horizon, I knew that whatever lay ahead, I would face it with the lessons learned and the strength gained from this tumultuous journey. The decision to separate was only the beginning of a long and arduous journey. As amicable as Emily and I tried to be, the formal process of divorce loomed ahead, bringing with it a whole new set of challenges and heartaches. Despite our initial agreement to handle things civilly, emotions ran high, and unresolved tensions surfaced as we navigated the legalities. We both hired lawyers to represent us, and our divorce proceedings began in earnest. I chose a seasoned attorney named Marcia, who had a reputation for being both compassionate and tenacious. Emily hired a lawyer as well, a man named Greg, who was known for his fierce advocacy. The first few meetings were relatively calm, focusing on the division of assets and custody arrangements for Michael and Lily. We agreed on joint custody, wanting to ensure that the kids maintained a strong relationship with both of us. But as we delved deeper into the financial aspects, things started to get contentious. Emily wanted to keep the house, arguing that it would provide stability for the children. I understood her point, but I also knew that the house held too many painful memories for me. Moreover, I had put a significant amount of money into the house, and starting over would be financially straining if I walked away without my fair share. Marcia advised me to be firm but fair. "You have a right to your portion of the equity," she said during one of our strategy sessions. "But we also need to consider the kids' best interests." Negotiations dragged on, with both sides presenting their cases. Emily's lawyer, Greg, was relentless, pushing for terms that I felt were unreasonable. Tensions flared during one particularly heated session. "I'm not trying to take everything from you, John," Emily said, her voice rising. "I just want to make sure the kids have a stable home." "And you think I don't?" I retorted, struggling to keep my composure. "This isn't just about the house, Emily. It's about starting over. I deserve that chance too." Marcia intervened, suggesting we take a break to cool down. The mediator assigned to our case tried to steer the conversation back to a more productive place. But the bitterness was hard to shake. The trial date was set, and the weeks leading up to it were filled with anxiety and preparation. Marcia worked tirelessly to gather all necessary documentation, ensuring that we had a strong case. Meanwhile, I did my best to focus on the kids, keeping their lives as normal as possible despite the turmoil. The day of the trial arrived, and the courthouse was a cold, intimidating place. Emily and I exchanged brief, tense glances as we took our seats. The judge, a stern woman with an air of authority, called the proceedings to order. Marcia presented our case with clarity and precision, highlighting the financial contributions I had made to our home and arguing for a fair division of assets. Greg countered with his own arguments, emphasizing the need for stability and continuity for the children. Witnesses were called, including a child psychologist who spoke about the importance of maintaining a consistent environment for Michael and Lily. Her testimony was compelling, and I felt a pang of guilt, wondering if my desire to leave the house was selfish. Throughout the trial, Emily and I were forced to confront the stark reality of our situation. The cold, clinical nature of the legal process laid bare the dissolution of our marriage, stripping away any pretense of civility we had tried to maintain. After days of testimony and deliberation, the judge rendered her decision. She acknowledged the importance of stability for the children, but also recognized my right to a fair share of our assets. In the end, the house would be sold, with the proceeds divided equally between us. Emily would receive primary custody during the school week, with me having the kids on weekends and holidays. We were both granted ample visitation rights and shared decision-making responsibilities. The judge's ruling was fair, but it felt like a hollow victory. As we left the courthouse, the finality of it all settled in. Our marriage was officially over, reduced to legal documents and divided assets. Outside the courthouse, Emily approached me, her eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted it to end like this, John." "Neither did I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. "But maybe this is the only way we can both move forward." We stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. Then, with a final nod, we went our separate ways, each of us stepping into an uncertain future. The months that followed were a period of adjustment and healing. Selling the house was a bittersweet experience, as we packed up years of memories and said goodbye to the place that had been our home. I found a new apartment, modest but comfortable, and focused on creating a new life for myself and the kids. Michael and Lily were resilient, adapting to the new arrangements with a maturity that often amazed me. We worked hard to maintain a sense of normalcy, celebrating holidays together and supporting each other through the transitions. Emily and I communicated as co-parents, putting aside our differences for the sake of the children. There were moments of tension, but also moments of cooperation and mutual respect. We both attended the kids' school events, sports games, and art shows, presenting a united front despite the fractures in our relationship. As time passed, the raw pain of betrayal and the bitterness of the divorce began to fade. The scars remained, but they were no longer the defining feature of my life. Instead, they became a part of my story, a testament to the resilience and strength that had carried me through the darkest times. Looking back, I realized that the trial had been a necessary step in reclaiming my life. It had forced me to confront the reality of my situation and make difficult decisions about my future. And while it had been painful and challenging, it had also been a catalyst for growth and change. In the end, the trial was not just about the dissolution of a marriage, but about finding a way to move forward with dignity and hope. It was about letting go of the past and embracing the possibilities of the future, one step at a time. As the finality of the divorce settled in, I found myself standing at the edge of a new beginning. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with both uncertainty and promise. The emotional toll of the past year had been immense, but I was determined to rebuild my life, not just for myself, but for Michael and Lily. Moving into my new apartment was the first step. It was a modest place, but I made it home. I spent weekends decorating with the kids, letting them choose colors for their rooms and helping me arrange the furniture. It was a bonding experience, a way to show them that even though our family structure had changed, the love and support we shared remained unbroken. Work became a sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in tasks and projects, finding solace in the routine. My colleagues were supportive, understanding the struggles I had been through and offering words of encouragement. Over time, I found myself more focused, more driven, channeling my energy into new opportunities and challenges. Outside of work, I reconnected with old friends and began forging new relationships. Social events that I had once avoided became occasions to meet people and expand my horizons. I joined a local running group, rediscovering my love for the outdoors and the simple joy of a good run. The physical exertion was a release, a way to clear my mind and strengthen my body. It was during one of these runs that I met Sarah. She was a fellow runner, with a quick wit and an infectious laugh. We started chatting during our runs, and a friendship quickly developed. Sarah was kind and understanding, having gone through a divorce herself. She knew the pain and the challenges, but also the hope and the possibilities of starting anew. Our friendship grew, and soon we were meeting for coffee after our runs, talking about everything from work to our kids to our dreams for the future. There was an ease to our conversations, a connection that felt both comforting and exciting. One evening, after a particularly invigorating run, we sat in a cozy cafe, sipping hot chocolate and watching the world go by. Sarah turned to me, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "John, have you ever thought about dating again?" I hesitated, the question catching me off guard. I've thought about it, I admitted, but I'm not sure if I'm ready. She smiled, a warm and understanding smile. It's normal to feel that way, but sometimes taking a chance can lead to wonderful things. Her words resonated with me, and I realized that perhaps it was time to open myself up to the possibility of new love. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating, a step into the unknown. As the weeks passed, Sarah and I grew closer. Our friendship blossomed into something more, a relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. She was patient, never pushing me beyond my comfort zone, but always encouraging me to embrace the present and look forward to the future. Introducing Sarah to Michael and Lily was a significant step. I wanted them to see that it was possible to find happiness again, to rebuild and move forward. They were cautious at first, but Sarah's genuine kindness and interest in their lives quickly won them over. We began spending time together as a group, creating new memories and blending our lives in a way that felt natural and right. Through it all, I continued to maintain a positive relationship with Emily. We communicated regularly about the kids, ensuring that they felt supported and loved by both of us. There were moments of tension, but also moments of cooperation and mutual respect. We had both moved on, finding our own paths to healing and happiness. Reflecting on the journey, I realized how far I had come. The betrayal, the pain, the trial, all of it had shaped me, but it did not define me. Instead, it had taught me resilience, strength, and the importance of embracing change. Life was different now, but it was good. I had a new home, a fulfilling career, and a loving relationship with Sarah. Most importantly, I had a strong bond with my children, who had shown incredible maturity and resilience throughout the entire ordeal. One evening, as I sat on the porch of my apartment, watching the sunset with Sarah by my side, I felt a sense of peace. The past year had been a tumultuous journey, filled with heartache and challenges, but it had also been a journey of growth and renewal. "John," Sarah said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I'm so proud of you. You've come so far." I looked at her, gratitude and love filling my heart. "I couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. You've been my rock." She smiled, leaning in to kiss me gently. "We've got a lot to look forward to, you know. This is just the beginning." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, I knew she was right. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. And while the journey had been painful, it had also led me to a place of hope and happiness. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons learned, for the love and support of those around me, and for the strength to move forward. Life after betrayal was not just about surviving. It was about thriving, about finding joy and meaning in each new day. With Sarah by my side and the love of my children, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The past was a part of my story, but it did not define me. I was moving forward, one step at a time, into a new and brighter chapter of my life.